All right, guys. So the new tool we're going to learn is called lofts. So just like sweep, I'm going to take a bit of time to like show you guys lofts, and then we'll do it together. Um, I'm going to try and keep this shorter than sweep for everyone's sake. I'll do my best. I make no promises. Okay, so a loft. So the first thing I'm going to do here, I'm just going to insert a new plane. So what a loft is, it's like taking a shape like a square and a shape like a circle and saying blend them together. Okay. So what helps to do that is you kind of need two faces. It depends how you want to do it. Like, I mean, okay, I'll give you a very basic. Here, let's just start with a very basic example. Let's say that I want to build that handle we just built as a loft, and maybe let's do it as an oval. I could have this profile of my handle. I did not make it coincident to my origin. Shame on me. Just get in the habit of always doing that. Again, I'm just doing this quickly for you guys to see. So let's say I want my handle to have like a really big base and like a really big and narrow base, and then like a more ergonomic center. I could take both of these sketches and select loft. And right now it's not, anytime that's not showing you, or here, maybe that's a little confusing. Let's start again. So you click loft, it looks like this thing here. Let's call it that bell shape or that wormhole shape. I can select my two sketches. And right now it's like, whenever your feature doesn't show you something in yellow, like in 3D yellow, it means it's not working currently. And that's because right now there's not a lot defined in my loft. Part of it too is this line here represents how the two will be blended together. They're kind of like anchor points. So you'll notice that like the one anchor point is on this bottom side here. This anchor point is on top. You know, we can all kind of visualize, I hope, what these two would look like blended. What's happening here is because one's from the bottom going to the top, it doesn't want to work. So I can always, or here's another way, just simpler way to put it. If you're not seeing any yellow, you can always try and click on these points and drag it around until you see something appear. So right now it's a more natural blend. It's going from the inside right to the bottom. If it goes to the inside right to the top here, it doesn't want to go. It doesn't know what to do. Here there's like a little bit of a twist in it. I can drag this over here, and again, it's gonna it's creating more twist. Now, ideally, your loft isn't left up to this anchor point. In fact, this anchor point is a very bad thing. This is just like, again, kind of a quick and dirty, loose way to work on something. Better than this would be to use a sketch in place of this line that's put in here. So I could, for example, so here, this is why you always want to make things coincident. I could, for example, just make sure that this is coincident to the center here. And on this one, make sure that this is coincident. So this is, so that they're aligned center. That's why I did that. So now on this front plane, if I create a sketch on here, I can create an arc from this point to this point. And because these are ellipses and not circles, they default have points at their edges. So again, if I want this to have a nice kind of like, what's the word, profile, or perpendicular blend here. So I can have this line, and now if I click on these two and select loft, because I selected the two sketches, it's going to start here. Right now it doesn't want to go because of this line. If I now go to guide curves and click on this, now it gives me a much more nice, like a nicer blend, something maybe more akin to what it is that I want to do. Coincident to the origin, without working with the origin, your sketch exists within like completely undefined in space. The origin is kind of what ties everything together. So to answer your question specifically, why I made these coincident to the origin was so that when I made this guide curve, I knew that it went center to center. That was the main reason. Now there is a way, so in general with lofts, it's good to have guide curves. Again, in general, best practices. It's by no means necessary though. You can work within the settings of the loft, like again, dragging this gray line. You'll notice because I had my guide curve going to center, this like loft line, it now snapped center to center because now it knows where I wanted my guide curve to be. So there are some other things within a loft you can do. You can give it constraints from the start and stop. So one of the constraints is called normal to profile. Normal is another word for perpendicular. You'll notice that in this view here, this is called normal to. It means I want to look straight at it two-dimensionally. Like if I'm sketching on a plane, if I'm sketching on a piece of paper, I want to look straight at that plane. I want to look straight down on that piece of paper. That's what normal to means. So here, if in this property dialog, there's start and end constraints in my loft. So this is saying, hey, at the start of your loft, is there anything you want to do? So right now there's no constraint. If I click this down, I'll be honest with you guys, I never use direction vector. I'm not even entirely sure. I think you could type in like how it works. I don't even know like what this wants here. Like that's super weird. I don't know what's going on. So let's make some digital art. I don't use direction vector. If you guys want to figure more out about that, I'm happy to YouTube it and then tell you guys what I found out. A common one to use is normal to profile if you have a sketch. So again, normal to profile meaning like perpendicular to. And you'll notice now, because I selected normal to profile, let's look at the change that happens. Here it's a straight shot. Here normal to profile, you'll notice then it comes tangent from this line out. And I can do the same thing for the end constraint. I can say normal to profile. And now you'll notice it bumps up. Now within normal to profile, there's a value here. You can dial in this value. So let's say that this is blending up too high. I can click this down, bring this down a bit. I can push this out a bit more. And now I have a loft where I don't really have to worry too much about having guide curves. So using normal to profile is a very simple, and it's probably one of the more common start and end constraints. Now, just like we saw with the cut before when you asked Trevor the question about what blind meant, and then I went to my other example and there were a lot more options. So here, let me, instead of speaking in vague terms, I'll give you exact examples. So depending on what you select for your loft, you will get different options. This is what I'm trying to say in many words. The example I'm referring to is if I go and edit this, we were talking about what some of these options were. Hopefully you guys remember when it was just a straight line, there were only two options, blind, through all, and through all both. Or sorry, only three options. Now because this is a closed profile, there are more options. That is an example to say that in this loft, because I'm starting with two sketches, there's only three options, none, direction vector, and normal to profile. I'll now give you guys another example here. Actually, no, we'll just leave this. We'll just hide it. So let's say I start with a square. Again, I want it to be oriented in space. I'm going to make it midpoint to this line. I'm going to make these equal so that it is a square. I'm going to make this for construction. Extrude this 2 inches. It is possible if I put a sketch on here, I could loft from this sketch. So I have the, if you have nothing selected and you select a feature, it's going to come in with nothing selected. If I select this sketch and click loft, it defaults to being as one of my profiles. If I'm in the sketch and I'm editing it and I click loft, oh, it doesn't let me. So it doesn't let you. Hopefully that makes sense. But anyway, for consistency, I'll start trying to just do this step by step. So if I click on the feature without anything selected, the blue boxes ask me what I want. I can loft from a sketch to a face, right? And now you'll notice on my end constraint, I have a lot more options. Whereas on my starting constraint, because it's only a sketch, I only have 3. So SolidWorks is smart. It defaults to what it knows you can and can't do, right? So here, we have a couple more options. There's tangency to face, all right, in this loft. Which, I mean, it still has normal to profile, right, which is similar as before. Here it has tangency to face, which is also similar. The one difference here you'll notice, and here's one of those things that you explained earlier, Trevor, where there's like a tiny hole you're never going to find. If you were zoomed way out, that might look okay to you. If I zoom in, you'll see this arrow in this face, it's telling the tangency to go down. So it's actually giving me this like lip on the bottom. So there's a couple ways to do that. If I click on this, it flips the direction, and that makes it similar to the normal to profile. But here's another weird one. If I click next face, it's going to select this bottom face. Right now it's lofting in. If I flip this back out, I expected that to work. It didn't. It would like, sometimes it'll like mushroom and balloon out, but it didn't work. So that's another option. Curvature is, for now and for your guys' purposes, actually really this is, I'll be honest, I don't know the exact definition of curvature. It is basically tangency to a higher degree. It is a more controlled tangency. I believe curvature attempts to literally make it as if it is the same surface. That is my best understanding of it. Again, depending where you are, I've worked with some people, one person really only, that wanted everything curvature. It really makes your life difficult when it has to be that. Tangency is good enough, in my opinion, and in most people's opinion. It's curvature is I feel like it's only use it if you're trying to get a very clean, like if you're having issues with your tangent surface and you want it to look as smooth as possible. So I think we went through all those. Now you'll see if we do this loft, right, it kind of takes these corners. I think if I take this and if I move this around, let's see if this works. Okay, it's being fussy with me. It only wants it to be within a certain degree. But sometimes you can get that to like twist a little bit. Here, I'll show you what I mean. So here we have, also what's worth mentioning is we have two different kinds of lofts. So here, I'll just do this. I'll loft this sketch to this here. And here, do you see why it's not working? Can everyone see why that loft isn't working? It's because obviously this line is going the wrong way. So here is like, that's the logical thing it wants to do, but you can sometimes get away with doing something weird like this, where you're lofting a twist into whatever it is you're doing. So here are some best practices with lofts, okay? So in general, you don't want this twist to be in your loft. I don't know why that didn't correct back there. Sometimes, do we have, let's see. Again, generally best practice, you don't want these twists in your lofts. Let me delete this out and reselect this sketch. There we go. So ideally, your loft is like, ideally you have a guide curve that at least centers your loft so you don't get any of that twist in there. That's one thing to avoid. Another thing that lofts like is when you start with a shape that has 4 edges, it prefers to loft to a shape with 4 edges. It will always work a little bit better. Obviously, that's not always the case. Let's see what this looks like when it doesn't. This will still go. It should. Okay, maybe not. Like it still goes, it's just kind of awkward. This is what ends up happening. When there's 5 faces on the top and 4 faces on the bottom, it inevitably ends up splitting somewhere. So general best practices for lofts, try and avoid it twisting. Try and have a guide curve centering it. That's kind of how you avoid the twist. And in general, try and have the same number of faces, or sorry, same number of edges on each profile. So again, if your beginning profile has 4 faces, it's going to be more successful if it goes to 4 faces. Now, in the event that your design requires that it has a different number of faces, this is where it is helpful to have this is where it's helpful to have more guide curves, okay? So let me change this transparency and hide some of this so it's not too confusing. So for example, I haven't taught you guys this yet, but this is the quickest tool to use this now. There is a 3D sketch where it's not constrained to any plane whatsoever. It exists in 3D space. The best way, as a side note, the best way to use 3D sketches is to go from two defined points in space. So in this instance, I'm going from the corner to here. And I'm going to create another line from this corner to here. And now let's see if this defines this a little bit better. Nope, I don't want to go to, I want to go to this face. I'm sorry, I think because this is transparent, it is selecting everything. I have my sketch selected, loft, going to this face. And now let's see what happens if I select these two guide curves. I didn't even need to select them individually, it selected them as one sketch. Oops. Let's see here. Which actually I may not want to do. Again, you can always right click and say selection manager and select just one at a time. So even though those are in the same sketch, I want to select these one at a time. So this comes in as like defined as, it calls it an open group. It's basically saying it's not the whole sketch. Then I want this other line too. I right click on it and I say selection manager. I guess I didn't have to right click on it. And now these are both defined as two separate entities controlling this loft. If I get rid of this merge and hide this, now I have my loft more controlled how I want it to go. So this is a long way to say that best practices for lofts: avoid twist, try and have at least one defined guide curve. It helps. The more complex your loft is, the more guide curves you should have. The loft prefers to go from the same number of faces to the same number of faces. It is working now. Awesome. Okay. Appreciate it. Thank you. Awesome. Thank you. Is there a new IP address? Is it the same that you sent out? Okay. Cheers. Thank you very much. You'll be using that next lesson, guys. Avoid twist. Oh yeah, lofts, they want to go from the same number of edges to the same number of edges. In the event that it doesn't, use guide curves so that you can tell it exactly what you want it to do. Cool? Okay. One last thing I want to point out. So there's two different kinds of lofts. This one is like the faces are parallel but offset. It's going from a base to another face. So like, here's the base, and then it's like lofting whatever this is 2 inches above. Then there's like this first loft I did where it's lofting 90 degrees. See that? It's going from this face down over here. All right, any questions on lofts? And then of course you can loft from either a face or a sketch, either one. Okay. Here, let's work together now. Does everyone have, I haven't checked your guys' homework yet. Does everyone have a microwave built or their assembly built? Yes? Okay. So let's do this. Let's, if everyone just wants to open up their file. Yeah. We're going to start to create an assembly here. Well, so, okay, the first thing we're going to do, I don't know. So I'll let you guys know where I intend this to go, okay? I'm hoping that because this is an individual project, that at the end, everyone should have a different microwave. So we all can start in the same place, but my advice is if you built it right, it shouldn't be too hard to go into your master here, move some things around. You can do different cuts. Not everyone's microwave needs to have this front crown. You can look at other microwaves online or whatever to adjust what it is you might want to do. But like that's kind of what the homework is for next week is whatever. I think we have a good start with what we have now, but I anticipate everyone's going to modify and refine what they have to make it unique. Like you can build feet off of here, whatever it is that you might have. So okay, for simplicity's sake, if everyone has something similar to this microwave we built last time, and for those of you that built it with me, let's just find this front curve here, and let's just suppress it for now. So this is a new tool too. You can find this cut. If you right-click on this, there is an option that looks like a cube with an arrow into a gray cube. This is called suppression. You'll notice it turns the command to light gray. You're basically saying, hey, I don't want this command to affect my model anymore. I don't want to delete it. I may want it eventually, but right now I want to turn it off. It's a switch. You're turning it from on to off. So you right-click on the command you want, and then it looks like a little cube with an arrow pointing down. So I'm doing this just for simplicity. So hopefully everyone has like a microwave with a flat face with this control panel here. If you guys want to be technical, well, maybe we should do this best practice. So after we do that, let's go to our master sketch and edit this. Now again, everyone's master sketch probably looks different. Wherever your control panel is, if you have a center line on there, if you don't worry about it, or try and create one if you can. You know, pull a center point off of your screen. But let's all create two circles on our center line. We're in the master sketch right now. We're editing the master sketch. And again, we're just doing this for best practice. I was about to say let's just do it on its own sketch, but I think it's good to. I'm just going to quickly figure out what my measurements on this knob here is. I had it before, 1.5. Okay. So okay, if everyone has these two circles, we want to give them a relationship. We want them to be the same size because we're going to use the same knob twice on our appliance. And again, I'm assuming everyone has a microwave. If you have a different appliance, that's fine. You can just pick wherever you might want a knob on your appliance and draw two or three circles, whatever it is. Once you have your circles drawn, we want to select both of them by holding Control and set their size to be equal. When you have that done, we want to then dimension the size that we want them to be. And I'm going to say we should make them 1.6 inches in diameter. And you should notice them both change. As long as they're like centered, I don't mind how far away they are from each other. It doesn't matter to me. Cool. So if everyone has those two circles, you can now exit out of your master sketch. If not, or if you guys want me to repeat what I did, I'm happy to do that. So I think from what I'm observing too, and this is common. This is totally normal. I think a lot of errors are happening from like misclicks. So like in SolidWorks, it's easy to accidentally select something. So again, SolidWorks is also pretty good though at giving you warnings, right? So I'm going to mimic up here just for everyone to see the issue we just had. So like if I'm trying to dimension the circle and I accidentally select another point, it's like if you're trying to dimension something and you've accidentally selected something, or maybe I wonder if I have something selected and then I hit dimension. No, it exits out. So yeah, it's like the center is misclicked, and then I click here, a warning pops up and tells me cannot dimension between an arc and its center point. So sometimes you can read and see the warnings and hopefully figure it out from there. I don't know, but it is very common to accidentally have something selected and not be aware of it. That happens a lot. Okay, once everyone has their circles in their master sketch, you can exit out of that. We are now going to create a sketch on this face here. So take your control panel. Again, we suppress that curvature. So when you're on your control panel, make a new sketch. Hopefully you can see your master sketches behind there. You can toggle Alt-V on and off if you want to turn sketches on and off, whether they're visible or not. It's like the master switch of hiding and showing things. And if you're in the sketch dialog on this face, we now want to select these two circles and then convert entities, copy them onto that face. If everyone has that, the next thing we're going to do is we're just going to cut a little bit into our appliance, or again, assuming everyone has a microwave. And we're going to make a cut that's about, this is completely arbitrary. I'm going to say, let's say 1/2 inch deep on there. So again, just blind. Yeah, absolutely. So, okay, I'm going to be honest with you guys. Right now, doing a sketch on this face is not necessarily best practice. I'm just trying to keep this simple and flowing a little bit quicker for everyone's sake. So just with that disclaimer. So what I did is I created a new sketch on this face. I went on my control panel face where I want my knobs to go. I clicked sketch. I went here. I copied the two circles we just made. I clicked on the two circles from our master sketch. I clicked convert entities. I then clicked on extrude cut, and I then let the extrude cut defaults stay as they were. I just changed the blind value to 1/2 inch, and hopefully it's going in the right direction into that control panel face. So does everyone have two places where they can put a knob on their appliance? Awesome. We are now going to start to get into assemblies, and we are going to then build a knob in our assembly. So hit save when you have that done. So in today's first demo, when we worked together, we built a handle independent of the microwave. All we did was look at a measurement and just ported that over. That is the way that I tend to work. I look at something, I take my measurements, I build it independent of the other file. It is possible we could have built that handle within the assembly and had the microwave there for reference. There are some dangers to that, but it can be helpful in some instances. So that's what I'm going to show you guys how to do now. So we're going to go new, file new, and create an assembly. Again, it doesn't have to be my template. When your assembly opens up, you should see this begin assembly property dialog here. We want to start with our microwave. So here in this instance, you should see with your microwave having been opened, it should be here. You should be able to just select it and just hit the checkbox. What that's going to do, by selecting it and just hitting the checkbox and not clicking anywhere, it should automatically align front plane to front plane, top plane to top plane, right plane to right plane. Also, you should be able to click on your microwave and drag it around and it shouldn't move. And you should see a pop-up here that says the selected component is fixed, it cannot move. That happened again because we selected, I'll do it again just so you guys can see, and I'll do an opposite so you see what the other way to do it is. If you don't see that dialog pop up, you can go to Insert Component, Existing Part Assembly. This defaults whenever you make a new assembly. That got fixed to the origin. Essentially what it did is it fixed the planes and the origins to each other by just clicking this and clicking check. The other way to do it, instead of clicking this and clicking the green check mark, is to click in here and then click somewhere out here in the window. Now let's see, this might have actually, because it's the first part, it might have aligned it. No, see, wherever I clicked, it was arbitrary. And so now the front planes are not aligned. However, I believe this component is still fixed. So whenever you put your first part in assembly, you want to do it exactly how I showed you guys, where you select the part and you select the check mark. This is still fixed, however. It's just the planes and the origin are not aligned, which is not ideal when you're starting off. Whatever your main component is, you want that to align with the more often than not, you want that to align with the planes within the assembly. Okay. So now, because I don't typically do this, I'm going to be perfectly honest with you guys, I'm blanking. I'm just going to try this first before we all do it together. I believe we go Insert Component, New Part. And I think what it wants us to do is select a face for us to start with. And let's see what face this is. I believe it is the front face. Oh, or does it align it? It does align it with those. Okay. This is one of the reasons I don't like building in this method. The reason that this method is good is because it gives you a reference. You can look at something and build around it. The reason it's bad is like, if I want to orient the knob in an ideal way, I would want to orient it about the origin, not offset from the origin here based on how this microwave is. Let me look through here again and see if I don't know what it's asking me right now. I think it's asking me to pick a part. Okay, it does align it. It appears to align it with the origin, and whatever face you select becomes the front face. That's interesting, but the top plane is still down there. Okay. So there's two, in my opinion, there's one major negative, and that plane, the aligning of planes, that's the secondary negative. The main negative is you don't want to accidentally have anything coincident to your external part, because then you're going to have an error in that new part you built. Again, in general, my opinion, it's best practices to do it how we did earlier with the handle where we built it as a new part. But again, sometimes it's helpful to see the surrounding bodies when you're building. So let's see here. Here we go, external references. Okay, so here's the major negative, is you want to make sure external references cannot happen when you insert your new part. Again, because what that happens is then the two files are tied to each other. It's like if I'm building this cap, right, and I accidentally tell it to be offset from this lip, I have two separate files. They're now tied. There is now a critical part of information in this cap that refers to this lip over here. So that increases the chance that this cap is going to fail if there is like an error, or if this goes missing, or if something changes. So you never want to have a reference from one part file to another. Does that make sense? So let's all do this together now. If everyone clicks on the gear up here, you may have it turned off with my settings, but let's just double check. You want to go here to external references. And you want to, it should say here, well, ideally, let's see. Open reference, don't prompt, allow. You want this one. This is the critical one down here. Do not create references external to model. You want to make sure that box is checked. So if everyone has that checked, you can just click OK, and we don't have to worry about anything. So now what we want to do again, we want to go to Insert Component, New Part. And what we're going to do is we're going to select the face here. This is going to become the front face of our model, whatever we click on. I believe that should be the front face. Let me take a side view here. Yeah, I selected the, like, whatever hole you cut into your assembly, select that bottom face. Oh no, we're building a knob. Sorry. The way I see it, we already built the handle. We'll drop that in later. Sorry if that was confusing. So now on this front face, so again, here's my gripe, and I'll be honest with you guys, like, I'm gonna make a note of it. I don't know if there's a way to get the origin, like to determine where that origin is. It appears that whatever face you select defaults as the front face. And that kind of, but I think it defers to where the origin is in the assembly. And it is, I have experienced this before where it's like I come across a part and it's built way off the origin, like the origin's down here. It's still defined off of it because you always want it to at least be defined to there. But there's a part floating in space somewhere. And that's more than likely because it was constructed within an assembly. Again, in my opinion, it's not my preferred way of working, but it is useful. So the note that I'm going to make is to see, can you define origin of the part in assembly? Okay, yeah. All right. So you'll notice a couple things. One, you'll see, look, that your microwave or appliance turned clear, right? You'll notice too that you have a new part in here. Everything's blue. You'll also notice, like currently we're in a sketch, I think. Did it take us directly into a sketch dialog? I'm sorry, I'm blanking now whether this was automatically loaded. Does everyone have something up in their top right corner that has a red X in this arrow? Okay, it looks like it defaults, it takes you directly into a sketch dialog. So in this instance, if I hit Alt-N, it's on our front view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to create a circle that looks like it's within this over here. And right now, see, this isn't defined to our origin. And again, this is not preferred way of working. Here's another thing you could do. If you don't want to do that, you could select this edge. We could convert entities. What's going to happen is a warning is going to come up to say, hey, you told me not to make external references. So it's, and basically saying, we're going to copy this, but it's not going to be tied to that model, is what it should say. So again, if we want to do this together, you can select the edge, click on Convert Entities, and here's that warning. Your selection is an external reference. Because of the current setting, the reference will automatically be broken. One thing you could do now, again, generally not best practice, but you could use the fix command here. And what this does, this kind of gives you a new origin to some degree. So we can now set that circle to for construction. And now we have a reference point within our model that references where the knob would exist within this microwave. You could always, and maybe we should do this later again for best practices, come in and delete that anchor point and just define where that's located. But for now, that's good enough. So we converted entities, the relationship's broken, we're hitting fix, it's giving us a point to build off of as we see our microwave now. Go ahead, yeah. Good question. Short answer, no. I did that all within the sketch. I'm still within the sketch. I didn't exit. I'll do it again just for explanation. So it seems like when we create a new part, it defaults us into this sketch. I can select this back corner here, select Convert Entities, because Convert Entities can be from an edge. It doesn't have to be from a sketch. Up until this point, we've been using it from a sketch. It tells me that it's going to be broken, so it turns blue automatically. Before I move anything, I'm just going to hit fix. So now I have that fixed reference point. And again, this is just for our current workaround. And again, it's good that it's not attached because we don't want the two parts to be attached. It creates problems down the road. Alexis, did you have a question? That's a good question. It shouldn't matter because it's the same. It was a straight extrusion. So whether you selected the front or the back, it should be the same. Okay, so now what we're going to do, we are going to create a new circle. So I'm going to hit O, and I'm going to select this center. This is kind of creating my new origin right now. And now because we can see, our microwave, we can see how much offset we want to give this. And again, we know that in CAD world, you never want to go line to line. You always want to give a bit of breathing room, especially for your render. Or we could just give it a value. One thing we could do is we do have this circle that's fixed. Oops. So I happen to be in millimeters. So if you are likely like me, we can go to Options, Document Properties, Units, and change this to inch, pound, second. It's not letting you make a what? Record. Hopefully everyone has a circle on the inside. You could do it as an offset, which is I think what Scott did. That's totally fine. So for example, I could take my fixed circle here that represents the cavity in my appliance. I could click offset and make it offset 0.1 inches to the inside by clicking reverse, depending which way I want it to go, and clicking check. Or I could create a brand new circle, which is what I started to do, click on the inside, and I could just judge by eye roughly how big to make it, or I could even just like define, that I want this to be 1.5 inches big or something. Why did that just move? Okay, let me exit here, extrude. All right, something weird just happened to mine. It just jumped. Did you guys see this? My sketch is now off center. I don't know what happened, even though this is fixed. All right. That's all right. We're going to recap. So we can select this back face. Let's see. Does this off? Okay, that's good. And then I made a circle within here. This is 1.5. And extrude this. Okay. But no, let's try and do best practices. So this is still our master sketch. So hopefully everyone has a circle within a circle. The circle is 1.5 inches. Hopefully your circle doesn't jump like mine did. The next thing we're going to do, if this is our master sketch, for this knob demo, we're going to make a new sketch command, which is called a straight slot. So if everyone wants to find it up here, you could also, I leave it up to you guys, you could also do ellipse. I'm going to do a straight slot here. And what this does is you start by drawing a construction line, but then when you grow away from the construction line, it basically makes a circle separated by two lines, which again, I would call that a slot shape. So here, to slow this up, it's up here, it's called straight slot. For now, doesn't matter where you click. If you want, you can click in line with the center of your two circles. Maybe that's a good thing to do. Go vertically. And then drag away. And again, it doesn't matter quite how far you drag away because we're going to define this. So if everyone has a slot now, we're going to take this center point and we're going to drag it so that it aligns with our center point. And again, if we look at what's going on in SolidWorks, when I align the center point of my slot to the center of my circle, you should see a yellow box appear with a green point. That's telling you it's coincident. And you let go on that. So start again with, so I'm going to grab my slot shape. Honestly, let's say I just put it anywhere. Doesn't matter. In the middle of your slot shape, you should see what looks like an asterisk or like a hairy dot. I'm going to hover my cursor over that hairy dot until it turns orange. I'm then going to drag that over until that dot is over the dot of my circles. And then I'm going to let go. When it's over the dot, the centered origin of my circles, you should see a yellow box appear next to your cursor that's yellow, a yellow box that's yellow, with a green point in the middle of it. That's saying, that's the sign for coincident. And if you let go, then they should be coincident. Now, if you're like me, then your slots gigantic right now, you can grab any of these like exterior points and just kind of drag it down until it's like within inside the circle. I'm happy to do it again if it's confusing, or I'll come over. How about that? Just happens so the class can learn in case it happens to them. I'll be honest with you guys. Let's see here. Is it E? Yeah, okay, you guys, let's all do this together maybe. Well, okay, with my shortcuts, yeah, let's do it. Maybe we should all do this together. I'm assuming this is what happened to you, Alexis. Here, okay, guys, we're going to take a slight detour here. We're going to go to Tools, and we're going to go to Customize, all right? So again, Tools up here, and go to Customize. And then in Keyboard, no. You know what, I'm sorry, I don't know what it's called. There we go, okay. Okay, if everyone went to Tools, I'll do it again just so we can see. Go to Tools, and then go to Customize, and then go to Keyboard. So Tools, Customize, go to Keyboard up here. In your search for, type in Filter. And this E, V, and X, just delete all of these. I'm assuming, Alexis, you accidentally hit X. Yeah, just delete them. I don't know if I did that or if that was built in, but like, what happens? Okay, so the E, V, and the X, what that means is if you accidentally hit any of those letters on your keyboard as you're working, you're suddenly going to load a selection filter, and it's just like a little tiny icon on your cursor, and it's not going to allow you to select anything. It's the most frustrating thing. So just delete those and hit OK. You won't miss them, trust me. And if you do, you can always reload the settings I gave you if you want those back. What those do, like if you guys look up and see my cursor, do you see that little purple filter? Now, like I can't select anything. I'm trying to click on these dots and nothing's happening. In fact, I just exited out of my model. I don't know. Don't do this. I'm going to edit this. If somehow you loaded a selection filter, the other way to turn that off, again, is you go to Tools, Customize, and in your toolbars here, you want to check Selection Filter. Click OK. You should have this appear at the bottom. And here you can see I'm filtering edges because it's depressed. I'm going to click on that to turn that back off. And now I can reselect things. So anyway, the error was a selection filter was accidentally turned on. Hopefully by deleting those hotkeys, the E, V, and the X, that shouldn't happen anymore. Or at least decrease the amount of times happening. Again, if it does happen, if you somehow can't select anything, you want to go to Tools, Customize. In your toolbars, you want to check Selection Filter. It should bring this on the bottom, I think is where it defaults to. And you want to just make sure that none of these are pressed down. And then you can probably start selecting things again. Okay, if everyone has a slot shape with the asterisk in the middle here, I'll be honest, I'm kind of making up how big this thing is. It really doesn't matter. Everyone can pick their own. I would say that we want our slot to be just slightly inside of our knob. I feel like I have to be careful with phrasing. But we want, so here I'm taking this line on the inside, I'm making it 3/4 of an inch long. Again, just making sure that the edge of this is slightly smaller than the circle. And here, let's make the width 0.6. Yeah, that feels good. Again, it's arbitrary. Feel free to pick your own numbers. We are currently making a master sketch. Yeah. Okay. See if that works. I'll be honest, I don't know what, the same thing just happened to Mari that happened to you before where that circle jumped. I'm sorry, I don't have a good explanation for that. Okay. Okay, I'll be honest, this sounds like a total cop-out. It seems like a bug. SolidWorks has weird bugs. I don't know what it is. I made a note to Google it. I hate to say it, it is another reason why I do not like to build parts and assemblies, personally. Okay. So here's the weird thing, right? If everyone has this initial, and I mean, it still happened to me, even though this is fixed, it jumps. Really, if you have a sketch that's fixed, it shouldn't move. Like, it should not move. That's what makes me think it's a bug. I don't know. Mine also happened when I dimensioned it too. Again, I'm sorry, I don't have a good answer. My answer is this is why I personally do not like to build new parts and assemblies. It just adds, there's just opportunity for things to go wrong, I guess. I don't know. It's just less robust, right? It's, to me, best practice is what we did with the handle before. Okay. Let's see. If everyone has these two shapes, we're gonna keep this simple, okay? We're just gonna see if this works and streamline this. So let's call this our master sketch. Let's just exit out. So you can click exit out of the sketch here. So you'll notice a couple things. One, your tree on the left here should still be blue. If for some reason you have a sketch under mates, that means you're making a sketch within the assembly. You should also notice this arrow and this assembly feature up here on the top right. This means you are still editing your part within the assembly, okay? Another reason why I don't like making parts within assemblies is it's easy to make mistakes. It's easy to select these planes up here. You always want to select the blue planes. You want to select the planes within your part. So here what we're going to do, we're going to select the front plane again. And now we're going to make a new sketch. So make sure you're selecting the blue front plane and create a sketch. And now we're going to make sure that we're going to grab the inner circle and we're going to convert entities on that. And then we're going to exit out of that sketch. And this is going to be the first part of our knob. Cool. Does everyone have that? We are then going to we're then going to repeat that process and grab the slot. So again, click on the blue front plane, create a new sketch, select the slot, and then click, you know what, this is a little bit of a trick. You'll notice I clicked the slot and the whole thing turned yellow, but there's only 2 dots here. My gut is if I click convert entities, it's just going to copy that arc. So what you need, slots are kind of weird because they're one command to make. It's kind of like you make a rectangle, right? A rectangle is essentially 4 lines. A slot is essentially 3 lines with the construction line in the middle and 2 arcs. So when you convert entities on the slot, you have to hold down Control and select the whole external. Or if you're feeling lazy, a quicker way to select is to right-click on one of the lines and say Select Chain, and then click Convert Entities. That's a quicker way to select it if you're looking for efficiency. I have 2 arcs up here now, so I believe. If you successfully did it, you should see the inside of your profile turn blue. That means that there's no lines overlapping, there's no gaps, it's nice and consistent. And so now we have our 2 shapes here for our from our master sketch. So this one, we're going to extrude this. So you're still in this slot that you copied. We're going to click the extrude. And now here, because I keep being negative on building inside an assembly, now we can kind of see the positive. How high off this back do we want this to sit, right? And now this can just be judged by eye. I could also probably pull a measurement off of this if I wanted to. So I set my value to 1.5 inches, maybe 1.6 might be better. I leave it up to you guys. Let's say 1.6 if you want to follow what I'm doing. And I mean, here's another thing I can do. If I hit Alt-M, I think I can pull a measurement from this face to this face. So that's the nice thing, right? As I'm designing this part, I can see, okay, it sticks off about 1 inch from the surface. So actually, that almost feels too small. I can always go back here. I can right-click on my boss extrude, click Edit Feature, and change this to like 1.7 maybe. Just so it sticks out a bit further. I'm then going to select the first sketch we made, which is just the circle. And I'm going to extrude this. And this one I want to sit just a little bit above the face down here. Let's say 0.7. Now, one thing I don't want to do here is I don't want to merge the results. I want these to be separate bodies. I think if you merge, I don't think it's the end of the world, but my reasoning is I want to, as I'm planning this part in my head, I want to loft the slot shape to the round shape. So I want to loft, so that's why I want the bodies to stay separate. I want that to be a nice clean profile face that's just a circle. I don't want a circle with a slot in the middle. So I'm unchecking merge result and clicking the check mark here. So hopefully everyone has something that looks kind of like this. Now here's the test. You know what, let's, oh no, let's see what the loft looks like. The reason for my remark is ideally, best practice would be to drop a guide curve in here, which I feel like we should do, honestly. The reason I said, oh no, is because unfortunately for us, our right plane is way the fluff over here. We could do a 3D sketching mode. I'm trying to think. I don't think there's no good way to do that though, unfortunately. Here's what I would do. Let's do this. Yeah, I want a more blend. Here, let's just stick with this path and just see what this looks like. Okay, I'll just do it real quick. So I'm going to click. You don't have to follow along right now because I'm kind of exploring. I'll be honest with you guys. I'm selecting the loft. I'm going to select this face and I'm going to select this face. And then I'm going to play with these. Ooh, it doesn't even want to do it. Okay, I was afraid this might happen. But not to worry. Oh, it is doing it. I just didn't see it. Let's go here. No, it wants to default here. So it looks a little bit different than a fillet. The other things you can play with here, once again, are the tangency to faces. So honestly, for the sake of like, well, no. So here, we could play with the loft, right? Do you want it to like bow out first? And then, you know, maybe we want this to have this kind of like fluted shape. I don't know how extreme you want this to be, right? But here we have like kind of a slightly more unique looking product knob. So that's actually not too bad. That kind of gets us there. Honestly though, I want to give you guys best practice. I don't want to just shortcut this. So okay, this is to demo that we could keep this simple. You could just loft from the slot to the circle. I want to do due diligence though, so we're going to delete this. We're going to create, so okay, if you guys have the two extrusions, on our front face, we're going to create a new sketch. Let's create a new sketch on there. Front plane, create a new sketch. Select the center line on your slot from your master sketch. So your slot should come with a construction line that should represent the center, and convert entities on that, on just that straight line, that for construction line. Okay, so let's see. Hopefully we're still within our part here. That's blue. Hopefully you're in a sketch dialog on the front plane. Hopefully you can see your master sketch. You should be able to select the fork construction line in your slot. So click away, make sure you're not clicking on anything. Oh, I see what you're saying. This again. Um, Here's what I'm trying to do. So I'm in a new sketch right now. I have the sketch is blank. I was just saying, hey, we already have a center line in our master sketch. We can pull that because that's all I want is a center line. If that is confusing, I could still just create a fresh line here. Make sure that I have this like yellow box icon that's telling me the line is vertical. And I can take this line and I can make it coincident or collinear to the center line. That's another way to do it. Or coincident to the origin of the circles. Again, all different paths to the same end goal. So if you guys have a center line, we're going to drag this longer. What we're going to do is so hopefully you have a line that's in the center. It should be black because it should be defined as vertical and coincident to the origin, our quote unquote new origin. It should be wider than our knob bodies that we have so far. And we're going to do an extrude cut. So I'm still in the sketch. I click on the extrude cut command. And then again, we're going to change our options here to through all both. So I'll do that again. I created a line that's coincident to the center of the circles. It's vertical. I dragged it so it's longer than both these bodies. I'm still in the sketch. I click on extrude cut. It defaults to blind in the property dialog box. I want to switch this to through all both. Then with that, I'm just going to click check. It doesn't matter which way we cut it. All right, guys. Okay. So we should have a knob that's cut in half, right? Everyone got that? So again, this is kind of best practices. So what we're going to do, we're going to create a new sketch on here. It's not a master sketch, but we're going to select this face. Again, we're working around some things. Ideally, if this knob were built, you know, another way we could have done this in retrospect, we could have started the knob separately, imported it into this assembly, and then started to work on it within here. Yeah, you could. So you could, well, yeah, and essentially that's kind of what I was just saying, is that we could have started the knob on the origin how we wanted with a master sketch, then basically placed the master sketch in our assembly, and then edited it to do what we want. So honestly, that's probably, yeah, that's kind of like an in-between of what we're doing, right? So I guess I'm showing you guys the two extremes. Again, for what it's worth, oh man, yeah, no, I'm recording. For what it's worth, the handle is like the ideal. Again, what we did with the handle, we built it separately, and then we're going to place that in the assembly in a minute. That's what I recommend. Minute 12. Alrighty. So yeah. So okay. So I mean, what we did is we placed this new part in here. It allows us to start building exactly where, on the front face, based on the face we selected. Maybe best practice would have been to start it, then place it, and then start to work on it within the assembly. So again, a cross between. So if we all have a knob that's cut in half, because we don't have the right plane where we want it, we're going to sketch on this face here. So right now you can select either of these faces. I'm selecting the slotted one, the longer one, and I'm going to click on Sketch, Create Sketch. And now within the sketch, we're going to make an arc that goes from this point to this point. And I want this, at least for the design that I want. I leave it up to you guys. You can do one of two things. You could either have it be tangent to this. I would have it be tangent to one of the two edges, either to the slotted edge or to the circle edge. It's your choice. I'm going to choose mine to be tangent to the slotted edge. Sorry. We're making an arc, so I hit A. I'm going to select the 2 points, the 2 corners. And for some reason, it's not making one of these coincident. So if or maybe is it either of these coincident? No, so one of them turned black for me. One of them got coincident to that corner, which is what I wanted. The other one was coincident to this line. So I'm going to select this point, and then tell them to be coincident, and now that should be black, hopefully. Yeah. And then now I'm going to take this line here, or sorry, the arc. The arc. And the edge of this slot, and I'm going to tell this to be tangent. And again, that's what I want. It depends what you guys prefer. If it's bending the wrong way, it may give you. So does everyone have a line that looks somewhat like? Does everyone have an arc that is connecting the 2 corners in some form or fashion? Okay. Yeah. Yeah, yours is different. If you want to change it, you can. But that's not wrong. Honestly, it really doesn't matter. Your arc can bend either way. So now what we're going to do, we're going to create a line here to give us a middle point. Because what we're about to do, we're about to mirror this part of the sketch to give us 2 guide curves for our loft. So here I'm still in the same sketch. I hit L to make a line. I click on this midpoint and drag it out horizontally. No, this is more of a reference line. So you could go either way as long as it's horizontal, and then just check for construction. So everyone should now have an arc and a line. And again, you should snap this line to the center point of this edge on the knob. So we're going to create a new line. And so I'm in my line drawing dialog. I'm going to make the first point of my line on the center of this edge of my cut slot face. So I hover on here, like when I hover on here, it turns yellow, the center point turns yellow. If I hover over it, it turns orange. If I click there and drag the line out so that I have this yellow box with a horizontal line in it, it's telling me that line is going to have a horizontal relationship. That line should be black with one blue vertex if you're looking at the same orientation as me on the right side. I then select that line and change it to for construction. If your arc is not black, what I would do is I would select one of the corners, if it's blue, and select the corner of the cut, either slot or circle. So here I'm selecting my vertex here. I'm selecting this corner with control, holding control down. So I'm selecting both of them. You should have two dots that are yellow. And then I'm clicking coincident. Right. And you can always drag it. If you have something that's blue, drag it around and see what happens. And that'll. And no, honestly, I know that sounds crazy, but like the direction it drags, it'll tell you that's what's not defined. So again, if I delete this, this turns blue. I'm dragging this around, right? You can see my cursor is going left to right, but do you see the line is only going up and down? What that's telling me is that it's coincident vertically in this orientation, but not horizontally, for what that's worth. But anyway, if I can just kind of take away all guessing if I just select this corner and this point, and then just hit coincident. Cool. So now we have the center line and this edge. If you select both, there is a similar, just like we mirrored the handle before, we're now going to mirror the sketch. It looks like two Tetris pieces. And you're just going to click on mirror entities, and it's going to copy that arc over for us. I'll do it again. So again, hopefully everyone has an arc. Everyone has a center line. If you select both of those things, holding control so that they're both yellow. If you made your center line here for construction, when you click on mirror entities, it'll automatically read that for construction line as the thing you want to mirror about. If you did not make it for construction, it's going to ask you questions. So if your emphasis is grayed out, it's because you're looking at the feature mirror, not the sketch mirror. That's a great question, and yeah, SolidWorks is confusing like that. There are similar features in both sketches and features, and you want to make sure you're doing the sketch one, not the feature one. Okay. If we're all good, we can exit that sketch if you have two arcs on either side. So now, again, we're just making a very controlled loft. That's why we went through all this trouble to cut it in half. You guys saw that I was able to get a pretty successful loft, and then got one too, from just going from circle to slot. But I want to show you guys best practices. So this is how you control your loft. So now you should be out of all sketches, but you're still within the blue part in your assembly. We're going to click on the loft base feature. And now we want to click on our half moon here, or sorry, our half circle. And we want to loft it to our half slot. Now cutting it in half, it does a couple things. One, it gives us those corners to loft to, or to draw those arcs to. But now, like we said before, remember when I explained how a loft with four sides likes to go to a loft to another shape with four sides? By giving us this long, flattened two corners, we now have we've given it points of reference. And again, this is how we build successful features that tend to work better. Okay, I'll start this again. No, that's a good question. I am in no sketch currently. I currently have no sketches. I am literally just clicking on lofted boss base. So if everyone does that, um, okay. So make sure, yeah, right. I just want to build on that point. I mean, it's a good area to be aware of. SolidWorks can be confusing as to whether you're within a sketch or without of a sketch. So that's always just a good thing to be aware of. And again, you can do that by looking in this top right corner or looking to see if icon is depressed or if your sketch is black or gray. So yeah, so we want to click on Loft Boss Base. And then right now there's nothing. Profile should be blue. The two profiles we want is the half slot face and the half circle face. With those two selected, don't worry about dragging the gray dots around. We're then going to click inside guide curves. So again, we're in the property dialog box. Underneath profiles, there is a purple box that says guide curves. We want that to be blue. We're now going to select our arcs one at a time. When you click on one arc, there should be a little box that pops up here. You can click the check mark. You'll notice that it pulls in the curve that we want there, but not on the other side. So you want to select that other one too and click the check mark. And with those two curves, whatever it is, I mean, I think we can play. It's good to be aware that like you don't want to over define your loft either. Like I could play with my start and end profiles here, but it might start to interfere with my guide curves, right? So this is a very situational kind of thing, but for now, with the way that we have this set up, it is best to not use the start and end constraints for our loft currently. It may work, but sometimes what happens is it creates a bit of a seam. So my advice is let's just not mess with these right now. So if you have your two guide curves selected, you can now just click check on your loft. I think it'll blend everything. That's okay. So hopefully everyone has something that looks like this. The last thing to do is to mirror the body. So again, we click on mirror. This one wants us to pick our mirror face plane. We can select the face we cut in half. Select body, go to bodies to mirror, and select on this body. I would like an analysis of how my language like devolves from 1 p.m. to like 5:40. And then click check, and I can do that again as a. Yeah, no worries. I was flying a bit through there. So once you have the loft working, what we're going to do next is click on mirror in the feature, not in the sketch this time. It asks us what face we want to flip about. So what's the center, which is our cut face here. And now we're selecting the bodies to mirror. We're going to select this whole body here and click check. And now that should mirror over, and now we should have a very basic knob. Cool. Okay. Actually, now most importantly, we want to. Okay, let's save. Let's see what happens when we go File, Save. Or no, okay, let's click on this exit thing here. And now go to, so you should have something that looks like a Tetris piece with a blue box on the top right. I already exited out of it. And now you have here part 5, up arrow assemb, or whatever, to the assemb 1. I think if we go File, Save As, it'll say Well, firstly, let's say the assembly. Let's just call it microwave assemb with today's date 02/15/19. Okay, I'm sorry. I thought it would prompt us to save this new part first. So I'm going to do this the only way I know how. There's probably a more efficient way to do this. Yes. Okay. Um, for some reason, it's not prompting for me. Yeah, I fully expected it to say, hey, there's a new part in here. Would you like to save it? What I'm going to do, so yeah, you may be like Mari. So it sounds like Mari, you went to file save and that worked for you. If that's not working, one thing you can do is you can open the part. So you can right click on it and say open part. And in this new part, you can say file, save as. It's going to say, hey, this is currently being referenced. That's okay. Just click OK. It's saying like it's already in assembly. And then I'm just going to save this as mwave knob 03 and then today's date 02/15/19. And I said 03 and wrote 02. I don't know. So you can always then, again, like I said, in your assembly, if it didn't prompt you, you can always right click on this and say open and save as. Yep, that's okay. Okay, so what that warning is, I got the same warning. It's saying, hey, heads up, this part is the file you are saving is being referenced in this assembly. If you name it, it is going to change. Essentially, it's basically saying it's going to change the name of the assembly. It's going to point to this part. It's just kind of saying it's already open in this other part. Great question. It will. Yep. So like, I'll give you guys an example. I have my knob open here. Let's first look at it in the assembly. Right? It's just kind of basic. Now, just for clarity, these are all just starting points for you guys. I fully expect everyone to go in and make changes, right, to make this unique, whatever it might be. So for example, if I want to go in and put a chamfer on this top edge, then Solver's is going to be like, nope, no can do. Doesn't want a chamfer. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to put a fillet on this top edge. And we're going to make it small so that it fillets. There we go. And now if I go back to my assembly here, it says models contained in the assembly have changed. Would you like to rebuild the assembly now? You say yes. And now you can see that fillet is in there. Cool. So whatever you make changes in there. Okay, let's drop our handle in. And then yeah, we're still within the assembly. So you should go back to your microwave assembly. It should have your main body and the knob we just built. And so now what we're going to do, we're going to go insert component, existing part / assembly. If you still have your handle open, it should be in here under open documents. If you don't, you can click browse and go and look for it. So here, you should either see it in here. If you don't, you can click browse, find it, and click open, and then it should appear as an option in this list. You can then select this, and now you're going to click anywhere in this white space, and you're going to see that the handle is kind of floating in space. I promise this is the last new thing we do today, guys. I know it's a lot, and then we're all gonna stop. No, today was a heavy one. We'll try and keep them not so heavy. Today was definitely a heavy one. So everyone should have this handle in here. Now you'll notice if you just click, this handle can just kind of float around, right? Now if you built this in the same orientation as me, it should be facing kind of the right way. If you didn't, no worries. If your handle's not moving around, you can right click on this here, and there should be something here that says float. Mine says fix because mine's floating. You should be able to click on that thing that says float, and then it should be able to move around. But it should default to floating. If it defaulted to fix, you may have clicked the checkbox maybe or something, I don't know. Okay, instead of clicking the white space. Okay, last new thing we're gonna learn is about mates. It's about telling something how to blend, or again, you know how we tell sketches to have relationships. This is coincident, this is tangent. This is the exact same thing, but with parts in an assembly. So I'm gonna take this handle, I'm gonna select this face here. So the inner part of your handle that you want to connect to the front face of your appliance, you're going to click on that. You then should locate the paper clip in the top right of your screen. My paper clip is a little bit left of the title. You want to click on that. It should, when you hover over it, it should say mate. And now you'll notice that if you had that face selected, it comes in with that face already listed in your mate selections. The next thing you want to select is the front door of your microwave. And you'll notice that handle should then drift and snap to it. It should default to coincident. The wrong way. It is what? We'll move to it. Yeah, there's still another step. So yeah, my handle happened to be kind of overlapping the microwave. It may move and be off to the left or the right of the microwave, above or below, it doesn't matter. You just want to make them coincident and click check. I'm going to give you guys two ways to do this. The Friday at 5:49 way is we look at the front view of it, you find your handle, and you drag it until it's in the right place on that door. And we all go home. The proper way to do it, so I'll slow down. So we selected two faces. We set them to be coincident so they touch. Doesn't matter where it is. It gets us close enough to where we want the handle, and then we drag it into position. For the most part, that kind of works. The next thing that we want to do, the proper way to do it, is we select the right plane on the handle and the right plane, like once it's kind of in where we want it, we select both right planes, the one on the handle and the one in the assembly. So you guys don't have to follow along, especially if your brains are shot at this point, but for those of you that are, I'll slow down. Oh, I turned mine on before to make a point when I was talking about intersection or piercing. So, okay, if you look at my tree for a minute, so I have three parts in here. If I click this, I expand my handle tree. So I have a right plane in here. I select this right plane, I hold down Control, I select the right plane on the microwave, and then I select mate. Now, obviously, it jumps over, which we don't want, okay, because it defaults to coincident. But again, there's a lot of options down here. So we can go down here and we can select distance. And you'll notice that the distance, SOLIDWORKS is smart. It remembers where it started. If I click on distance, it's going to push it back out to where it began. And whatever, mine's 5.704 or 5549. It doesn't matter, just click check. It's towards the bottom, yeah. So it defaults to coincidence, but you want to select distance. And again, so now if we think about our relationship, right, now it moves up, down still. So here's my 2 cents on mates. honestly, the Friday at 450 mate is good enough for most cases. Where you get the main one, I want the handle to touch the face, I'm just going to drag it into position. Especially if you're doing SketchCAD, if you're just doing concepts, you're just trying to show things. If you're working with engineers and it really matters that the handle aligns with where the bolt holes are, that's when you want to start defining exactly where it is. So this is one way to do it, is with distance, how we just did that right plane. And now to just make a point, I can do the exact same thing with the top plane. I can kind of look at the front here, I can kind of see where it is centered. Or alternatively, I could probably take the top plane here and the master sketch. Here's a better way to do it. I could take the top plane from my handle and go to the mate icon, the paperclip. And now I could select this line from my master sketch in my assembly and click check. And now you guys might say, wait, we talked about no external references. This is a reference within the assembly. It's not part to part. Within the assembly, it's okay to have those things. And that's it. We learned sweep, loft, and then a little bit on assemblies. I know it's heavy. Yeah. It does not. So you know how I just showed you how to put that handle in here? You can put the knob in there the same way. So okay, and that's a good question. How do we put the knob in there? A second knob in there. I'll just do it real quick. Again, if you guys feel free to ignore this. Yeah, so we go insert existing part assembly. I can click on the knob. And again, when I'm adding a part to an assembly, I like to click in this white space, not the check mark. I'm going to click in the white space here. Now it's the exact same thing. I can select the back face here, and I can select mates. And what that does is it aligns them coincidentally. That's fine. Now the knob's a little different. I'm going to select this face here and this face here. And that made it to be concentric. And those are really the only two we need. The nice thing with the concentric mate is now we can actually turn our knob. I will go over that again next time, okay, for the knobs. Okay, I just need your guys' attention for two more things, base minimum. Your homework for next class is to finish this microwave. So that means adding fillets, adding feet, playing with the dimensions a little bit. Yeah, just add details to it based on the tools that I've given you. What? That's okay. Like I said, I'll do it again next time. What I did, just to talk through it, the same way that we put this handle in, insert new feature, I did insert knob. I'd encourage you to try it and then play with the mate options that you have. To let you know what I did, I made it the base of the knob to the base of the face in the cavity. And then the key is the new mate was the edge, the circle face on the knob to the inner circle face as a concentric mate. But again, I'll go over that again next time. Your guys' homework is to finish, again, I'm assuming you all have microwaves. Your homework is to finish the microwave. So that means putting in the screen. You can do it as just like an inset cut, adding whatever details you can with cuts and stuff. Look at microwave stuff online, add feet to it. Put some fillets on the side here, whatever it is you think you need. Again, you can look at microwaves for reference. Some microwaves will have like an inset face here that ties the control panel together with the door. I'm sorry I didn't show you guys how to build this. We just kind of ran out of time, but you can build this with a loft. Just like how we lofted around to a slot, you can loft a very flat rectangle to an arced rectangle to get from here to here and then mirror it down. So just use the tool I taught you to just add details. Don't worry about detailing the inside so much. I would just put fillets like this inside cavity. You can put fillets. My plan is to provide a plate for you guys. If you did do microwaves, everyone can throw that same plate in there so you just have that extra detail. Any questions on that? Okay. I think I saw everyone's computers. Let me just walk around and make sure. Let me stop this.